week. Ryan.
Rain and a surge of migrants. Nearly 200 illegal immigrants, by the way, apprehended in a matter of just hours in front of our cameras.
Griff Jenkins watched it all unfold, and he joins us now live in McAllen, Texas. Griff?
Good morning, Brian Ainsley and Steve. I'm just feet from the border here in McAllen. But, you know, the Border Patrol is stretched thin. They're overwhelmed. They're tired, and they have had a surge of migrants that is unbelievable, topping 10-year highs. But when some of those migrants don't want to be caught, it hasn't stopped the dedication or drive of our men in the green uniform. Watch. It's unbelievably difficult terrain. I'm cut, my gloves torn, these men rushing through here, and we found a group. This is the first one we found, just nothing but thorns, bushes, bugs, snakes, spiders. This is the spotlight you can see that's being put. There they are. They've got two more.
Both of them actually tried to run. This one right here was hiding underneath this brush to my left, and this one right here got up from the brush and took off running southbound, but I was able to get him before he got away.
This is the brush underneath here, right where I am, where the last illegal crosser was laid down, and Herman had to crawl in like this and go through these bushes and thorns. It's just treacherous. And there are other challenges on the border. We had, as you mentioned, Brian, nearly 200 of the family units surrendering to our agents here, Agent Herman Rivera. But while we were having groups of 50 or 60 coming to us just a half a mile up or down the border to our east or west, we had smuggling efforts going on and other groups coming. It just won't stop coming. It was 12,000 in the last 12 days yesterday. We'll find out what today's numbers are. They will be high again, and we have the problem with where to put them. They can only take 3,300 in the detention custody area here. They've got 6,000. The numbers are going the wrong direction. We went into the processing center yesterday and saw just how hard they're getting hit. They have $12.5 million in their budget for the facility for fiscal year 19, and they've already spent that. They're going to need more money as well. This, as Secretary Nielsen will make a trip today to Yuma, Arizona. And while a lot of people here in Texas are still fearing the president might shut the border down, the president as well will travel to the border on Friday to Calexico, California, guys.
So Griff, so for what we understand is catch and release is back. The AP reporting over the air in the New Mexico sector, they're letting thousands go into Greyhound buses and go into the city because they have nowhere to put them. Are you guys at that situation around there where people are just catch and release is back in full force?
Absolutely, Brian. The processing center we were at yesterday, which is where they go before they are put in a detention area, there's space for 1,500. They have 2,400. I asked the woman in charge in our off-camera briefing, I said, what are you going to do with them? She said, we have no choice but to release them. They will likely go to the Catholic Charities, Sister Pimentel, or other areas because they want to care for the migrants and their safety, not just turn them loose on the streets where they're very vulnerable. But the reality is, the higher the numbers get, the faster they're being released. And when they get released, those that seek to not go through the proper legal asylum process, they just want to get caught and released, well, they're calling back home in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, and the magnet and draw to make that 3,000-mile journey that I've now made twice is growing stronger.
Now, Griff, what if they're caught with drugs on them? Do they go to a prison or do they go to those detention centers too where they're caught and then released?
Case by case, but they will be prosecuted if they are smuggling. And the group we went in after, which took several hours, you should see our producer AJ. He's covered in marks across his face because you're just in such thick thorns. Yeah. They were evading capture. They will be prosecuted and likely all deported. We thought there were about 11 in there. We captured 8 of them. And so if you evade being apprehended, right, you will be likely deported quickly.
All right. Griff Jenkins, along with A.J. Hall, down on our southern border right there in McAllen. We thank you very much. It does sound as if the president has kind of been backing off on the I'm going to close the border unless Mexico helps us out, because yesterday in the Oval Office he actually praised the tougher Mexico enforcement of our border rules. You know, we had told yesterday they were thinking about a plan B where they close the border but they let commercial traffic go back and forth. But here's the critical number, and that is during the month of March, when there were, you know, the suggestion is 100,000 migrants heading that way. Only 90% of
really
where
Griff everyone's
is
going, exactly.
Secretary Nielsen's going to go to the Yuma border today. She's going to be there most of the afternoon. The president's going to San Diego tomorrow, and hopefully something comes out of Congress, because that's where this thing's going to be solved. The wall is a separate issue. Meanwhile, Raul Ortiz is the deputy chief on the Rio Grande Valley sector of the border, and he talked about to Sean what he's seeing.
Certainly, we're experiencing a crisis right now. So far, this sector has already seen 141,000 apprehensions this fiscal year. Just in the last 24 hours, we've made over 1,200 arrests. We seized 30 pounds of cocaine, 400 pounds of marijuana. All of us are stretched awfully thin right now. We need to make some changes to the loopholes out there.
Especially
and we
your
need to
sector.
deter this traffic from actually crossing.
And speaking of Texas, yesterday, about 15 miles from Dallas in Allen, Texas, ICE had one of the largest workplace raids they've ever had. They arrested 280 workers at a tech repair company. Apparently they were working in the country with forged documents, something like that. They got tips from people who were working there, and they went in, arrested 280 people yesterday.
We told you yesterday that the House Judiciary Committee was going to be voting on whether or not the Democrats really want to see the full Mueller report unredacted. They want that classified information in their hands. And they voted yesterday to authorize the subpoena. So they're subpoenaing, or could be subpoenaing, the DOJ to turn over that full Mueller report.
But don't worry about it if you're a Mueller person, or you're the Attorney General Justice Department, because in 2012, they asked for the Fast and Furious documents from Eric Holder. They got him in 2016, and then you get all the documents. He was out of office by then. So this subpoena that hasn't been issued yet, but Jerry Nadler can hold in his hand, is likely going to do no good. It's flat-out symbolism to appease his base, perhaps. You'd have to answer that under sodium pentothal. But one of the things that what he's going to get is, Jerry Nadler, is the Mueller report. What he also is going to get is a demand to speak to the Attorney General. The Attorney General has promised to speak to him May 1st and May 2nd.
Right.
This was a total show vote.
Well, and ultimately, Jerry Nadler, who is the head of that committee, he says, okay, I've got the subpoena right here, and we will use it if we're not satisfied with what the Attorney General releases. Rudy Giuliani was on with Laura last night and said this about how partisan politics have infected what's going on in Capitol Hill.
I think they're actually proving that they're basically rabid partisan Democrats who should not be investigating something where you have to have some degree of objectivity and fairness. They have no regard for the Constitution or the laws. The president actually can't have it all out either. He can't override the law. He can't say, okay, grand jury secrecy doesn't matter. Only a judge can do that under very, very narrow circumstances. These people are lawless. They're a joke. I mean, there are laws in this country. Republicans get the benefit of laws, not just Democrats.
Rush Limbaugh also weighed in on this. Listen.
This is going to be a real test of the American judiciary and our criminal legal justice system. The Democrats are convinced that there is evidence of collusion. They think there's evidence in there, and they think that's what some of the stuff Barr will be redacting is. The Democrats and Nadler want every bit of salacious dirt, and they want the Attorney General. They are demanding with this subpoena that he violate the law. There are people saying that this subpoena, demanding that Barr break the law and turn over everything, is just a stunt. That Nadler knows full well that Barr's not going to turn this stuff over as he's demanding it.
Unredacted as well. Meanwhile, you knew this is coming. As we get ready to get the 400-page plus Mueller report, now we find out from investigators who have a source that did the Mueller investigation. According to the New York Times, who got the story, and the Washington Post confirmed the story, the New York Times says that the summary is this. This is an excerpt from the article. The officials and others interviewed declined to flesh out why some of the special counsel's investigators viewed their findings as potentially more damaging for the president than Mr. Barr explained, although the report is believed to examine Mr. Trump's efforts to thwart the investigation. What I should have said before I read that is that the investigation said, the investigators indicate that it is more serious then Mr. Barr led on with his 4-page summary.
Right.
However,
but
Mr.
they didn't
Barr
say how.
Right. They didn't say how. Some members of the Mueller team were concerned that Mr. Barr created the first narrative of the special counsel's finding. America's views will be hardened before the investigator conclusions became public. This is mainly thought to be about obstruction, not collusion.
But it's unnamed sources, and how many times have the New York Times gotten stuff from the Muellers wrong? It will be interesting to see when it all comes out, because apparently the people who talked to the New York Times and talked to the Washington Post from the Mueller team, they were upset that Mr. Barr didn't actually just take a look at their report, because in each chapter there was a summary. And so why don't you just put our summary out? Why'd you have to do your own summary? And so they're steamed about that. Although, according to the Department of Justice, which spoke to the Washington Post yesterday, they said there was all sorts of stuff in the summaries, including grand jury information, confidential stuff, things that cannot be released at this time.
It was anonymously sourced, you're right. It was very vague, and people, the associates that worked with the Mueller, on the Mueller team, some of them are saying, according to this article, that that Barr's report was incorrect.
Remember James Comey, what he did to Hillary Clinton? He said, I'm not going to indict her, but look at all the bad things she did. Barr's trying to ignore that, avoid that. He's saying, these are the conclusions. I'm going to leave it at that. So meanwhile, 11 minutes after the hour, Jillian, great to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. Yes, I love seeing you guys in person. Let's get you years. Police reportedly waiting on DNA tests to confirm whether the 14-year-old is Timothy Pitson. He says he escaped from kidnappers in Cincinnati and ran to get help. Timothy was last seen at a Wisconsin water park with his mother in 2011. She killed herself and left a note saying her son would never be found. Police now looking for 2 men in a Ford SUV with Wisconsin plates. Brad Paisley is breaking ground on a new store that will provide free groceries for people in need.
Where you place this is important. Right at this edge of where gentrification is happening, and also there's people being squeezed out. It's just the perfect place.
The store hopes to serve 3,000 people in Nashville every year. Paisley and his wife got the idea after volunteering at a similar place in California. Love to see that, doing good in the community.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Very sweet of them.
All right. Thank you very much, Jillian. All right. Straight ahead on this Thursday, Democrats have made some bold claims about health care.
If Trump gets his way, thousands of people will literally die.
Skyrocketing costs for families. Women charge more.
Just how true are some of the left's latest claims? We continue our look at what needs to be done to fix the healthcare system by putting the latest rhetoric to the test. Here for day 4 of our healthcare checkup. Our checkup series is Fox News medical contributor Dr. Nicole Saphier. Dr. Saphier, great to see you.
Hi, Ainsley.
All right, let's start with Bernie Sanders, presidential candidate, saying that thousands will die if President Trump gets his way. Listen.
If Trump gets his way, the cost of health insurance for you will be so high that many people literally will not be able to afford it. Thousands of people will literally die.
Is that true? Fact or fiction?
Oh, well, come on. This is fiction. This is a very bombastic claim that he's making right now. And he's actually combining 2 things. First of all, if Trump gets his way, he'll actually be decreasing health care costs. Everything the Trump administration is working towards right now is to decrease costs. Bernie Sanders is talking about he wants to increase access to everyone. Well, you know what? You can't increase access without decreasing costs, because if you do that, you're going to get exactly what he's calling for in his Medicare for All plan, which is the Canadians' version on steroids. You're going to get ration care. And so we can't have that. I mean, look what's going on. You have 50 to 75,000 Canadians every year coming to the U.S. for their treatment. Where's Mick Jagger getting his heart surgery from this week? New York City. And he's not a U.S. citizen. Actually, I don't think he is, but he is not here full time. So people come to the United States because we have great access to care. And Donald Trump is wanting to decrease the cost of care. If you decrease costs, you therefore are going to increase access to care. So just because he's not jumping on board the single payer plan, it doesn't mean that people are being stripped from their health care coverage.
Okay, that's good to know. Senator Chuck Schumer on the president's politically motivated move. Watch this one.
The potential consequences of this politically motivated move: skyrocketing costs for families, massive increases in prescription drug spending for seniors on Medicare. Women charge more because they're a woman. Seniors charge more because of their age.
Fact or fiction?
Okay, well, fiction here. And let's be honest, Senator Schumer likes to blame President Trump for just about everything, from gas prices to shutdowns to now health care. And the truth is the Democrats are mad because President Trump is actually getting rid of their secret plan or their sneaky plan of implementing single-payer health care. Because what is he doing? Again, he's working on lowering health care costs. He's taking for the Medicare high earners, he's increasing their cost sharing there. He's introducing reinsurance plans, Medicaid block granting. All of this is to counter the efforts to decrease the costs. Now, what Senator Schumer is talking about is the DOJ siding with the lower court, saying that the ACA is unconstitutional. Now, this does not equate to stripping people of their coverage. What this does is lays a clear path for the Republicans to come up with their responsible replacement plan after the 2020 election. He is definitely lining his ducks in a row, President Trump is. He is ready to take over health care as soon as that election's done.
Okay, Dr. Saphier, thank you. And I'm learning our fabulous producers did some fact-checking on their own. Mick Jagger, dual citizenship.
Ah, okay.
And
well,
we wish him all the best.
Good for him.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. Saphier. As Congress battles over border security, one country has
heads to court today. The SEC is claiming the Tesla CEO violated a 2018 settlement deal. It required Musk to have his tweets about the company, car company approved before he starts tweeting them. Well, the feds say he broke it with the February tweet about incorrect Tesla production numbers. The SEC has already hit Musk for $40 million in fines. And actress Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman free on bail after appearing in a Boston court on Wednesday. They're both charged in the massive college admission scandal, but that didn't stop Loughlin from smiling at the fans.
Lori, pay for my tuition, Lori!
Dozens of parents are accused of paying bribes, thousands of dollars worth, to get their children into elite colleges. And that is some of the news, Brian.
If Lori is watching, don't pay for that girl's tuition. That's what's got you in trouble to begin with. Meanwhile, border state lawmakers doubling down on President Trump's call for stronger security.
The border needs security measures. I'm talking about a wall, a physical barrier, boots on the ground, technology, and surveillance.
Yeah, and Arizona would know. So while the fight escalates here at home, overseas border walls are going up with very little fanfare. In Pakistan, for example, over a tribal area, the way to protect your people is to put a fence up. Will that be effective?
Well, that's the problem with Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's a terrorist infiltration border nightmare between Afghanistan and Pakistan, where you have the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda network and Al-Qaeda moving back and forth between those two borders for years and years. Pakistan is finally putting up a very long, pretty stout wall between those two countries. It's going to be 1,600 miles long, costs about $500 million. And that should probably put a pretty good end to the cross-border pattern of travel there.
And you also note that in Hungary, they were worried about 400,000 migrants, illegal immigrants coming into their country. So what they did is didn't wait for permission from the EU or anybody else. They put up a fence. They put up a wall. And how effective has that been?
That's right. I just came back from Hungary. I visited that wall and toured it. In 2015, there was the migrant crisis that was, sending millions of migrants from Muslim-majority countries right into Europe. They were passing through Hungary. Hungary said, we're not going to do this anymore, so they had their military put up a 330-mile barrier in about 4 months. And the statistics show that it went from about 400,000 to, 300.
And it's overwhelming with the same results when Israel did the same because they were worried about their border. Next, us. What could we do on a 2,000-mile border by picking the right areas with these with steel slats that we've been considering?
Well, the fences that we've been talking about are not steel slats. The one between Pakistan and Afghanistan, for instance, is chicken wire. It's about 13 feet high with a lot of barbed wire. The one in Hungary is mostly chain link with a lot of razor wire. What we're talking about doing is a series of variations of border wall. Just to give you an idea, between 2006 and 2009, the United States was able to put up about, I want to say, about 550 miles of border in a pretty short period of time with vehicle barriers. It took a little bit of time. Different kinds of walls require different kinds of installation. Of course, we have legal issues, eminent domain and things like that as well, to contend with that Pakistan doesn't have to worry about.
Right.
And Hungary neither.
So let me see. Looking back, Todd, Bill Clinton built some of the wall. George Bush built some of the wall. Barack Obama built some of the wall. Donald Trump wants to finish the wall. And that's the problem, it seems, because his name is President Trump. Todd Bensman, it's working around the world. It seems to be able to be working here if we go ahead and do it. Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
All right, 30 minutes before the top of the hour, we move ahead. Fox News will host a town hall tonight with former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz. Todd Pyro is having breakfast with friends ahead of the big event in Kansas City. Todd.
Brian, good morning to you. It's a very Todd-heavy block here. You had one Todd, then you have another Todd, but it's not about me. It's about the ladies coming up on Fox and Friends. We're going to be talking about all the big issues of the day in light of this big town hall where they're going to be talking about the big issues of the day. And if there's one common theme from this table, one, it's ladies' morning as opposed to ladies' night, and two, immigration. We're talking about that. We're having cinnamon roll.
Single day.
Right.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, Julia.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let's start with this story. 4 adults living in a filthy memorials for former President Gerald Ford and First Lady Betty Ford at the Ford Presidential Library in Grand Rapids, Michigan. People found guilty of damaging government property could get up to 10 years behind bars or $250,000.
Right.
I saw a proposal at a Phillies game I was at last weekend. It was up on the, the Jumbotron, the big screen.
See, it's planned ahead.
Yep.
Usually.
She didn't look surprised. I'll just say that.
Okay.
I'd love to track these relationships and see how they turn out.
You can do that. Let us know.
All right, good.
50-50, I hear.
We'll follow him for the next 4 years, because that's the tough part. All right, let's go out to the streets of New York City. 20 minutes, Janice, before the top of the hour, and you've got folks with signs.
I know, it's amazing. First of all, 100th birthday for your granddad. What's his name?
Frank Beach.
And where does he live?
Stevenstown, New York.
Does he watch Fox and Friends?
He does.
Yay! Happy birthday, Grandpa! All right, birthday for you, when?
April 5th.
And what's your name?
Rocky Parsons.
Where are you from?
What? Hurricane, West Virginia.
Wonderful, thank you. And you guys are from Arizona.
Lake Havasu City, Arizona, home of the
150.
London Bridge.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Look at all the information that you've received today. Let's take a look at the maps. It is springtime in New York, my friends. We're going to flirt with the 70s this weekend. Thank you very much. 45 right now. We'll get those temperatures up over the next several hours. 36 still in Minneapolis. And we have a little bit of snow on the way for the upper Midwest and the potential for severe weather, unfortunately, for the Mississippi River Valley. We already have had reports of wind and hail, and we could see some tornadoes later on today, so just keep that in mind. Know what to do if there's a watch or a warning in your area. And all of that, unfortunately, is going to come up towards the East Coast in the next couple of days. Unsettled weather for the West. But you know what? It's a beautiful day in New York City. Say hi to Steve, Ainsley, and Brian. Yay! Hi, everyone.
There you go.
Happy Thursday.
Yes, London is missing a bridge, and it's out in the
So
desert.
they took it from London and put it
They
in Lake
moved it
Havasu?
out there.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day. Thank you very much, JD.
41 minutes after the top of the hour, House Democrats demanding 6 years of President Trump's taxes. And the president's response?
Is that all?
That's all.
Oh, usually it's 10, so I guess they're giving up. Now, we're under audit.
The question is, House Democrats, they're demanding that the IRS provide 6 years of President Trump's personal and business tax returns.
Is that all?
That's all.
Oh, usually it's 10, so I guess they're giving up. Now, we're under audit, despite what people said, and we're working that out.
Well, GOP lawmakers are now accusing Democrats of weaponizing U.S. tax codes in another attempt to take down the president.
The latest attempt to take down the president. Here to weigh in, Fox News senior judicial analyst and the host of the Liberty File on Fox Nation, Judge Andrew Napolitano. What's going on here?
Well, when this first came up, I honestly didn't know this statute existed because it's an obscure statute. But it's a law of the land, a federal statute that says the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee or, meaning they don't have to act together, the chair of the Senate Finance Committee can ask for anybody's tax returns, and the secretary, meaning the Secretary of the Treasury for whom the IRS works, shall furnish them. They don't have to give a reason. The chair can get them. any amount of them. The president's right. He was being a little sarcastic. Why'd they only go back 6 years? There's no limitation. And they don't have to give a reason for it. But they do have to keep it secret and confidential.
Yeah, right.
And that's the rub. They probably don't want to keep it secret and confidential, and they have a way not to do it. Do you remember when Senator Feinstein got her hands on that 6,000-page report, of torture? President Obama said, don't release it. Even John Brennan said, don't release it. She went to the floor of the Senate, released it with immunity. So if these tax returns go to the House Ways and Means Committee and any member of Congress gets them, that member of Congress can go to the floor of the House of Representatives, and the tax returns of the President of the United States become public. They can do this to you, to Ainsley, to Steve. They can do it to me. They can do it to anyone.
So I understand it's a major test for Steve Mnuchin. He has to make the legal argument on why not, why these should not be released. Can he?
Well, I don't know what that argument would be. I mean, I understand the president's argument that he's under audit, and an audit is private. So if he's under audit, he knows it, and the people doing the audit know it. The public doesn't know it. That would not be a defense. I'm sure this is going to end up in the court because this Mnuchin is not going to release it voluntarily, even though the statute says
Why would they do this? They're not happy with the Mueller report, and now they want to find something that maybe he's done illegal in his taxes?
I think the behavior of the Democrats in the House is kind of apparent. One argument is, he made all these claims about his wealth and his business success. And that's the reason for electing him president.
It's not a reason.
And let's challenge that.
And
It's a political reason.
Yeah.
The other argument is he's a human being. He has a taxpayer. He has the same privacy rights as the rest of us. Again, as I said, they did this to Donald Trump. They could do it to any of us.
But the Democrats want to show how little tax he paid, using the rules of the law.
Right.
I've got a question for you. You've never heard of this law before.
Honestly, I looked it up when this came out.
Why'd they brew it up? Where'd this come from?
The law has been around for about 60 years. It was not written to target Donald Trump. It was written to let Congress get away with whatever it wants to get away with.
Have they ever used that law to see other presidents' tax returns?
Never.
Wow. Now, it didn't stop there. The Oversight Committee, the House Oversight Committee, led by Congressman Cummings, issued a subpoena before sending on to get 10 years of President Trump's financial records. The company that has these financial records says, just give me the subpoena and I'll give them up, but I need to see the subpoena.
So this is new to me, Brian. These are financial records in the hands of what, his accountants?
Yep.
Those are confidential. Those are protected.
Well, it looks like the accounting firm says if you give me the subpoena, a so-called friendly subpoena, they could formalize the process of complying with the panel's request.
So if the accounting firm files a subpoena and then the client, the president, will hire lawyers to quash the subpoena.
So you've taken it 2 or 3 steps. Cummings thinks he's getting them.
I would be shocked because that accounting firm would violate their own rules of ethics. It would be like Jerry Nadler getting the president's private legal records. Well, we know that they did that when the FBI raided Michael Cohen's office.
Right.
So, listen, here's the bottom line.
It's presidential harassment. It really is.
If they can do this to the president, they can do this to anybody. Are anybody's rights safe anymore?
Can Congress change this law?
I doubt that would happen. The Democrats control the House. The Republicans control the Senate.
They could, but they won't.
Democrats seem to love weaponizing the IRS.
Yeah.
They seem to have a trend on that.
Dangerous.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, can you name all 3 branches of the government? A new survey says 1/3 of us don't know any.
Really?
Sorry, stay out of this, Jack. Our next guest is sounding the alarm about a major problem in our classroom.